I just write it. Do you want me to write one here?
No, it's fine, I'll write it. I can write
The rise and fall of Sarah Palin.
Yeah, I wrote it in here. Don't worry about it. Okay, everybody got one of the handouts?
Yes.
No, not everybody. Who needs one? Yeah. All right, how's everybody doing today?
Not doing good.
Yeah, okay. We haven't started staging the opera yet, so we're still good. All right, so did everybody get a chance to read the chapters? Yeah, you're actually reading them now?
Yes, Chris.
All right, okay, so I want to start by reviewing formats that we talked about last class, okay? And then today we're going to talk about the different types of analysis that we do, like with those computer programs that I've shown you about. And then on Thursday, we're actually going to do it in class, okay?
Woo.
So Kurt Stallman's going to come and help us. We're going to like have a microphone and everything. And so I need people to like sing for that, okay? We'll talk about that at the end of class, okay? Cool. And if you feel inspired to volunteer on Thursday, you can as well, okay? If we don't like have it preset. Good. Okay, so let's review some format stuff. So I talked about something called the source filter theory. Can anybody explain that to me?
The source is the vibration of the vocal folds, and the filter is the resonators and articulators that affect that.
Awesome. Good. Exactly. That's all. It's super simple, right? So it's just that the sound source comes from somewhere and then it filters through something to change the sound, right? Cool. And then I talked about spectral slope. What's that? So this is
the decrease in
all these review things I'm talking to you guys about. This is like what I'm putting on the test, just so you know. Okay. So if you're taking notes on it.
the decrease in amplitude of all of the overtones after the fundamental.
Right. Yeah. And so what kind of slope do we have in our voices?
From my point of view,
Right, so it goes down, right?
Right.
It doesn't go up. And then like what is it about what should we be singing? How many decibels?
6.
Yeah, so it goes down about 6 decibels per overtone.
But for overtone.
Right. Okay, cool. And remember that we can't hear them really fast as soon as they go up. So we only hear like what, 7 by the time we get to the top one in the harmonic series, right? So good.
What was the first topic you asked about?
The source filter theory.
Hey,
You're welcome. I'm gonna make sure this video can.
just be concerned.
Yeah, you should be. Good. So then I'm going to ask you to talk about. So if I give you like a spectral slope, right? So it's like this, and we get like first, second, third, something like that, right? Okay, that's the spectral slope. And then if you put it through the filter, the formats that we have, we end up getting something like this. Right? Okay, I'm going to ask you to draw that with information that I'll give you ahead of time. Okay,
Okay.
cool?
With information?
Like I'll show you the two things and you'll combine them. Like so, I'll give you this part, and then I'll give you like, oh, let's say that the formats look like this, and then I want you to draw that in there to get this.
Would it be possible to have an opportunity to practice that?
It's not, you just have to do like what I just did. It's not going to be super strict, okay?
Okay.
I just want you to, the point is to know that we have the spectral slope that we make at our glottal source, right?
Yes.
And then we put it through the filter, that's the formats, and then we get this, is what it looks like when we analyze it,
Yes.
Okay.
okay? All right, because there's like two things at play that make the final one that we see, right? Do you understand why that's important? Okay, cool. Good. So then, what is a formant?
Resonance.
Awesome, that's good. That's the one thing I want you guys to remember for this unit. Good. So then we have two different kinds of formants, right? So we have the first two, which are called what? Good, vowel formants, and the 3, 4, 5 are called what? Good, awesome. And how are they created? Like, what makes them happen?
Different changes in length of the vocal tract.
Right, okay. So it's like we change the shape of the inside of our mouths, and because the length changes in the way that the sound is resonating through, it changes where the formants go, right? Like, do you remember when I was singing, I was just doing the, and I was only changing the second formant, right? It's stuff like that, okay? And the first formant is changed by how open the front of your mouth is. Good, and then I want you to be able to identify the pictures of which vowel it is. So like McCoy has in the book, these ones. So if I give you this picture, to be able to tell me that that's an E vowel, okay? And remember that that chart I showed you from the this one? How the second format, when you go E, A, A, O, U, the second format always goes down, and the first format does this, okay? So if you remember that, you can figure out any of them. Okay? Is that easy enough?
Yeah.
You guys think you can do that? Okay, good. Good, so then the singer's format, why is the singer's format important to what we do?
Because it allows us to have a complex enough sound to be able to be heard over an orchestra.
Right, I wouldn't use the word complex, because any sound is complex though, okay? But that's right, so it makes it so we can be heard over an orchestra, right? Because it gives us an amplitude around what hertz, do we hear?
22,000.
2200?
2400 to 32.
24 to 32.
Yeah, like 3000.
That's singers.
Yeah, right. So, and it changes depending upon who is singing, right? So it's in a different place in everybody's voice. Good, and then I talked about the nonlinear source filter theory, and what's that? We talked about it briefly at the end of class. Okay, so what would a linear source filter theory be? What does linear mean?
In a line.
Yeah, Michael Hewitt for the win. Okay, so in a line, right? So if we get our source and it goes through a filter and it comes out, right? That's what we think. But nonlinear means that, remember how it resonates back, and that's how we get the resonance? That resonance helps create the non-destructive interference in the wave, right?
Is this when you were bending the tube?
No, that's just to make the formants happen. It was like when I was singing through the didgeridoo thing, and it was stopping me from singing.
Right.
Huh?
When it messes up, it messes up, then it cracks.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So that's destructive, and that shows how the nonlinear source filter theory works. That it has an impact on the source, because I can't sing a certain resonant frequency in that tube, okay?
So the didgeridoo is a linear.
No, it's, what we do is always nonlinear,
Okay.
because what the sound resonating has an effect on the source, okay? And so it can be beneficial to it, right? So if we're singing the pitch that is resonated by the didgeridoo, like when I sang the D, or the E flat, that was for that one, it made it sound really like full, right? Because it resonated it. So it had a positive effect, it had constructive interference with it, rather than the one where it's destructive. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Olivia, did you say it doesn't make sense?
Yeah, I have completely lost you. I've been doing this moment. I normally understand this, but for some reason I don't understand. Why is the non-linear different than the linear?
Because the resonance of like the tube that's afterward has an effect on the source. So if it was linear, it would just be the source and then the filter and the sound comes out and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Whereas like if we have the source and then the filter, something happens in the filter that can affect what happens in the source, which is back in the line.
Okay.
So it's non-linear because it can go back, it
So
can
our
affect.
filters, like our mouth for singing?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah,
Right.
that's why certain vowels are
Oh,
easier to sing
okay.
and our voice is like helping our stuff in our throat with the
Yeah, depending on how you tune
sound pressure.
the shape of your,
But like, for like a flute, is that linear, or is the, like the way that they, like would the filter be the tube in a flute?
yes,
So
because it's the
not-
resonator, right?
So because they change, I mean, I guess they don't change the actual filter, so would that be linear?
No, everything is non-linear.
Well, every,
So there's not a difference between nonlinear source filter theory and source filter theory?
Right.
Okay.
So source filter theory is that you have a sound source, and then there's a filter that happens afterwards, okay?
Okay.
So what we know at the end of the chapter is this stuff with the destructive interference and the constructive interference, like when I was trying to sing through the didgeridoo and it stopped my voice from singing, that the filter, the resonator, can affect the source behind it.
Okay.
That's what the nonlinear source filter theory is, right? So you can get the reflections of the sound waves that actually stop me from making noise, okay? And so you can do, that is always at play in any resonator, but it just, depending upon how noticeable the effects are, depends a lot on things. So like we will change the way, like so if you sing a high note and you crack, sometimes it's because of that destructive interference, okay? Sometimes you can get away from it by changing your vowel and singing through it, because then it doesn't affect the source. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Are we all clear now? Lydia, got it?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Just making sure. Good. That's all I wanted to talk about the formulas. Everybody got that? Awesome. All right, let's talk about analysis today. So this is basically how we see everything that we've been talking about for the last two classes. Because we said there were 4 properties of sound at the beginning, right? What were the 4 properties?
Amplitude, frequency,
Uh-huh.
Duration.
Duration and timbre, yep, spectral.
Spectral encode.
So this is how we see the spectrum of everything, okay? Awesome, so all these analytical instruments we have, usually they're like computers. But we do it with our ears naturally. That's how you can tell that I'm talking and Cody's not talking, right? Because we analyze what the spectral timbre of our voices sound like, okay? So we can objectively measure things that were once subjective. So when they were writing all these books back, you know, and Verdi was writing his operas, all of this was subjective, like how certain vowels like sounded great on high notes for women, but those same vowels did not sound good for men, you know. He like knew this stuff, but he didn't know why necessarily, scientifically, okay? But now we can analyze this stuff, and so we can tell. We can see the singer's format, we can see volume and timbre. Our ears are way better at this than any of the computers we look at, okay? So whenever people are all like this voice science stuff and they like use these things in our lessons, it's beneficial, but our ears can hear it much faster and quicker and be able, because we get all that feedback back into our bodies and so we can affect what our voices are doing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Okay. So this stuff is basically like kind of cool to see what's in there and all that. So we get 2 kinds of sounds, right? We get periodic sounds. What are periodic sounds?
Sounds like for over a time period.
Yep, good. So that they repeat, right? So the period repeats and then they have a frequency. Okay? And then we get aperiodic sounds, which are non-regular sounds and they sound like noise. Good. And so we got some examples. Remember the Rubens tube thing with the fire? This one's a 3D version.
Yeah, go for it.
Good. So those are periodic sounds, right? Because they make the flames come out and everything. And then we get aperiodic sounds
Wait. Why is it a periodic sound?
because it has frequency.
Okay.
Because it has a period and it repeats, so we hear a frequency, right? Yeah.
Great, thank you.
No problem. And remember, no dumb questions, because this stuff is kind of boring.
I have a question like that.
And then so we get aperiodic sound, sounds like this, right? But it doesn't have a frequency. Okay?
Right, that's the same thing. Pitch and frequency is the same thing, doesn't have a pitch.
No.
Oh, man.
Remember we talked about this? Okay, so when we talk about science stuff, pitch and frequency aren't the same thing. Frequency we can measure, we don't measure pitch.
So you
So,
measure it with the hertz though, right?
yeah, that's frequency.
Okay.
A lot of times we interchange pitch and frequency, depending on what we're talking about, right?
Okay,
So like if we're gonna talk about singing an A, we'll say that that's a pitch, but they're not
but it's on this
technically,
frequency,
they're not technically the same thing,
okay.
right? Is that, I know it's kind of confusing.
But like when I'm listening, like between the two of these, the only difference I'm really noticing is that one I can do like boom, 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 on like a bit, this is just like.
Right. And so that one you can hear it like goes zzz, zzz, or
Yeah.
something. Like it has like a frequency
Yeah,
to it, and the other one sounds like shh, right?
yeah.
Because it has all the harmonics at once.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll see when we look at the. My clicker's not working today. Whatever. Okay. So what kinds of things can we analyze? We can analyze the fundamental frequency. That is the pitch, right? So we can say like that is an A, right? So we can look at what it is on a computer and we can tell what hertz it's singing. Okay. Good. Amplitude, we can tell how loud it is in decibels, like with this thing, right? Amplitude in regards to frequency, so we can see if you sing an E vowel at lower, if it's going to be louder or softer than it is when it's higher, right? So if I sing it like, you'll see, that's one of the things we're going to do when we look at it. We can see if we're singing legato, if we're singing connected or broken up, right? Because we'll see the lines go through and it'll look legato. And then we can see vibrato in the ways. Remember when we looked at this last class briefly? Good. Okay. We're talking about those kind of things. Good. Types of analytical tools. This is FFT is basically a process. It's a like mathematical algorithm that all this stuff comes from. And what it does is it converts time into frequency, and we get this kind of waveform. If we see, like this is what we hear in the room. There's like the buzzing of the projector. There's like people breathing. There's people rustling their paper. People writing with their pencils. All those noises get broken up into their harmonics that look like this. Okay. It's a mathematical thing that they do. Make sense? And it's like taking a prism with a light wave, and you put the light wave through it, and you break it up, and then you see all the different colors that are in the light. Okay? We've all seen those happen before, right? Okay, cool. Good. Audio waveform. It transfers acoustical energy that we have into electrical energy and displays it visually. So we hear things, it makes the microphone move, and it takes down all of those different variations in the pressure. We show variations in the compression and rarefaction. Sine waves are the most simple ones that we get, right? They're very curved, they don't have any interruptions. And then we see these kinds of things because they have the interruptions in it, right? So basically it's like a sine wave that has a whole bunch of different harmonics in it. Okay, does that make sense? Because when you do, so if I take a sine wave and do this, right? And then if I want to put disturbances in the sound, we end up like, so hitting the vocal folds together or something like that, we get this. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so when we get like very complex sounds, they end up looking like this. Right? Because it has a whole bunch of different sounds inside of it. Cool. Good. So these power spectrums measure the spectral envelope of the sound instantaneously. So they're just in a moment, right? It's very much like a prism. So if we get our Pink Floyd album cover out and we look at the white line going through, and then we get these different colors coming out. So this is basically the sound we're hearing And then we look at the harmonics and partials and overtones, all those things. They're all the same thing on the computer, right? Cool. Good, so these have the x-axis is amplitude. This is a spectrum. It's not a spectrograph. That's a different thing we're going to talk about in a second. That's why I capitalized all this stuff. We get amplitude here, right? So if 0 is normalized, this is quieter. And then on the y-axis, we get the frequency of the overtones that we're analyzing, right? So the fundamental pitch is probably this one, yeah? And then we get all of these overtones. So I actually did, this is one that I took when I was doing this. I like whistled, and then I got this one. And this, all of this stuff down here was like the noise that was in the room, okay?
So that's like just one moment in time, that's not like a over time.
Right, yep. It like happens instantaneously, it's just one moment. And it's a sound prism, there's no time for this. And then the spectrographs, oh, we're not gonna talk about that yet. Okay, good, so it's a snapshot of a single moment. So we get this, so if we're singing an ah vowel, it's gonna look like this, right? This thing will look like that, because on the x-axis we get what? Again,
Why are the axes switched?
for what?
Like, isn't the x-axis always goes this way and the y-axis goes this way?
Did I write them wrong? I wrote them wrong.
Oh my gosh, I literally
Sorry.
thought everything I ever know is a lie.
No, no, no.
Oh
Sorry.
my gosh, that's so scary.
I will fix it.
No, it's not a big deal at
I
all.
apologize. Okay. Right, so on this axis, what do we get? Amplitude, right? And this one is? Frequency. Good, look at that. They're right there. So the LTAS is a long-term average spectrum, which means that you take like a sound that's over, say, 10 seconds or something, and then we're going to analyze that whole spectrum and make the average of it, okay? You can have those two. That's something we can look at. So we can sing just an eval, and you can look at what your eval looks at like over a second, or something like that. And the computer just averages it, makes it look like that. It's like seeing a photograph instead of a movie, right? So it doesn't happen in time, it's just a snapshot. And we never actually see the vowel filter, we only see what happens to the harmonics afterwards, right? That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the class when I was showing you that. So we have the spectral slope, you know, that we have at the source, and then we put it through the filter, and then we get what it looks like afterwards, right? Cool. But we can do things with like vocal fry and white noise, so if I go like, and we can see the formants a lot more clear because we get all the overtones in there, right? Cool. Good. Human voice is sawtooth wave. We never actually like talked about that stuff, but you don't have to know it. We produce all the harmonics because in the source we produce them, but we only resonate every odd one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when we talked about that with the quarter wave? Only resonates every other harmonic. So we'll hear every harmonic, but they're not necessarily resonated in the resonator, okay? Cool.
How do we hear them then?
Because they go through the resonator, but they're not resonated.
And when you say that, do you mean that there is like constructive whatever, like, I don't know, interference happening or something to like amplify that one frequency?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the sound wave is it's bouncing back and forth, right? And so it's building up on top of itself, and then when it comes out, it's louder.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
And so like with the quarter wave resonator, if we look at like a power spectrum like this, and we will see our resonances be louder just in the 1/3 every odd harmonic, right? So, but if we played like a flute or a cello or something in that, we would see every harmonic be strong. Okay? Make sense?
Question.
Yeah.
So I think I understand what you're saying, but doesn't every sound have a resonator? Because don't you say everyone has like a source and whatever?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But if it's not resonating, then it isn't a sound.
What do you mean by that?
So you're saying that, never mind.
No. I want to clarify it.
Well, so in any sound, oh, it has to resonate, and you
Mhm.
said that those pitches or those harmonics don't resonate.
Right, so they're not resonated by the resonator because it's a quarter wave resonator, okay? Just because, okay, so they can be resonated is different than being produced,
Yes.
okay? So like if I am playing a flute, which is a half-wave resonator, right? We will see every harmonic will be resonated by the instrument, okay? That doesn't mean, and every harmonic is produced. So in our voices, we produce every harmonic, but we only resonate the odd ones. Because it goes through a tube that's closed at one side.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yeah.
You don't look so sure.
I mean, it makes sense, like, I understand what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
but I also don't understand, like, how it can be a sound if it's not resonating. According to our definition of like a sound.
Okay, so when we have resonance for something, so if it is resonating, it's amplifying whatever the source is it goes through, right? It's amplifying and de-amplifying certain frequencies.
So maybe instead
of
of
the source.
resonating harmonics, they are amplifying those harmonics.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can think of it that way.
Okay.
But some of them it is de-amplifying too, right? So like the even ones it de-amplifies because it doesn't amplify those ones.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good, so our desired call off for our spectral slope is about 6 decibels per octave. Breathy sounds about 12 and pressed voice is about 3. We talked about that, right? Cool. Balanced is what is important. If it's too loud, it gets really strident. We hear it like, right? Because it's super strong up into the end. So like the resonator only amplifies or de-amplifies whatever you put through it, right? So if it's super, super strong in the high end of the spectrum, it's gonna sound very bright and strident, right? Because it's gonna have a lot of those overtones. Okay? Cool. And then if it's too soft, it can't be heard. And it's always rich down there. Good. And then we had this before. We take the spectral slope, we put it into the filter, and then we get this, right? So like this is what I would be asking you when I was talking about the reviewing. If I would give you these two things, I'd want you to draw this part. Okay?
So basically, you just draw the lines in the outline of what the filter graph is?
Yeah. Right. And so the lines are what?
The spectral slope.
Yep, but what are they actually? Right? So on this side, we have what?
They're the harmonics.
Yes, they're the harmonics. Right? So we get the fundamental frequencies, this one, the first one.
And their farther apart because the pitch is higher.
Yep.
Gosh.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yep. Good. So this stuff is, once you start to try to put it all together, that's when it gets really confusing. You think you know like every little thing. Trust me, I've like been through this like 3 times. Yeah. That's why I want you to ask me all these questions, okay? So if we get like the one fundamental frequency, and then we get the next overtone, right? That's what this looks like. This is our source. This is what our vocal folds would look like, okay? And so then we put it through the filter. Notice they're the same filter, right? Let's say that this is an ah vowel, even though it doesn't even remotely, it's a vowel, okay? This is what our vowels look like. And then we get this sound, okay? Right? And so if the pitch is higher up, the harmonics are farther apart, right? Because they're logarithmic, and so they go, because they get farther apart as they go higher, right? And so when we get to this, when we see this, we have less information about this than we do if we had a lower pitch. Okay? Because there's more harmonics to fill in the filter. Making sense?
Yes.
Cool. Good. So this is a program we'll talk about. It's called RTSect. It gets this kind of information. This is one we can use to analyze some of the stuff. We'll look at it some on Thursday. We might even do some of it today. Because my plan is if we get through this presentation, we'll just do our homework in class. And then we don't okay. Then this is what a spectrogram is. So we get the power spectrum, right? So this is what the amplitude is down here, the frequency is down here, right? Yeah? And then we get, that happens in the moment. That's a photograph rather than a movie. And the spectrogram is the one that's a movie and it goes over time, right? So we get x-axis is frequency, y-axis, oh man, I messed them up again. Okay, so this one's time and this one is frequency. right? Okay, so if we're gonna start here, we sing this pitch, goes over time, and then we go up the frequency, and then the intensity of the color is what? Z-axis. Amplitude, right. So it's actually a three-dimensional graph. Yeah? Good. We looked at this a little bit last week, remember? And so we get the fundamental pitch here, and then we get the harmonics that go up, right? So this would be the first what?
First.
Yeah, right, so that's the one that's an octave above, right? And then the next one is what?
Second harmonic?
Yeah, which is what above?
Not third, fifth.
The fifth, right? And then the next one?
Fifth is a,
Yeah, fourth above, so it's 2 octaves above this one, right?
yeah.
And then all the other ones, right? We all know those. Good, so then what would the formants be on this graph?
The ones that are resonating the most?
Almost. Anybody know? Okay, so the formants are where we see the energy increase,
Okay.
okay? So we have down here, this one could be an informant or it could not be an informant. We don't see the formants, obviously, because remember, we don't see the filter. Oops.
So like the second harmonic there could be lining up almost with informant.
It could be,
Right.
yeah, but we don't know for sure.
Well, and you never really line up perfectly with your formants, do you?
But it depends. I mean, it's a shot in the dark. I mean, like you can, but you never like really know if it's like super perfect, right?
Right.
Because you actually get the most amplitude if you're like just south
A
of
little
it.
bit, yeah.
Good. So we see the formants. It would be like this band of color. See how this is more intense here? And then there's this one. That's the singer's formant. Okay. So it's like a band of color that happens over a wide, like, swath. Okay. And we can look at some of them. Actually, why don't we do that?
You asked the question, what are the formants, but I feel like, I don't know, that confuses me. Isn't it more of like a where are the formants on the graph instead of what are the formants? Or like,
For this one? Yeah, so like here, like where would the formants be?
oh, so where are the
So-
well,
What I was saying is these little bands are not formants, those are harmonics, right? So if we take this one and we go here, that's a harmonic. That's not a formant.
so you're just asking where they are on the graph?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I could show if we do,
What do you think?
Where are the formats?
You can kind of tell.
I'll show you in a second, just give me a second, guys. Actually, I'm gonna try to use this. Okay, so this is what the room looks like right now, okay? This is like super not clean, because it's just my stupid microphone on my laptop, okay? But like, when we do this on Thursday, we're gonna have like one that goes through a preamp and everything, it'll be really clean. Okay, so if I go, this is the same setup as before. If I say, the formants would be like here, and that's my singer's formant, right?
Right.
But it's that band, right? It's not, these are the harmonics,
The
Mhm.
lines.
the lines, yeah. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And you can really tell if you like do it on the scale. If you go. See how they're just, it's a band
Yeah.
Of brightness.
of brightness, because that's amplitude, right?
Those are the
Right.
formants.
Those are the formants.
And they're louder because they're being resonated.
Yep.
That's so cool. I want that on a t-shirt.
We can make them on t-shirts. Okay, so we make sense with that? And I also want to point out, so this one is what's in a linear version of this. This one's called the overtone analyzer, and I put a link to it on the Google Drive. This version of this program is free, which I think this one, I think this is the best one. If you guys want to like download and look at this, which is part of what we want to do with this. So it shows the piano over here, right? And see how they're all smushed down here, and then they're more open down here? Because that's what this looks like here.
Yeah.
So I can switch that view to the log arrhythmic view right here. So I hit that button. And then it's spaced out evenly with the pitches.
That looks like space travel.
Okay? Kind of cool. Okay, so we're going to talk more about all of this stuff on Thursday. I just want to make sure you guys know that the formants are the areas where it is amplified, right? It's a resonance of the vocal tract. That's why we can't actually see them, you know, when we looked over here. And so we have that filter, it's there, but we can't see it without just doing information in there. Like you can do things like put like white noise through things, so if I sing like, wait.
So that's like, what is it, like Bolshevik gas sits there and goes like, you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen him do that?
They do what?
He like inhales through his like,
Oh yeah, they do like,
he like looks at the formants that way. It's really weird.
yeah. Good, so
I
we go.
like the laugh ones.
That's what you said.
Okay, so I did it with fritone, which has more harmonics in it, right? Because it's aperiodic. It's more aperiodic than periodic. And so we can see the formants do this, right? And move.
That's really
And the other ones go down here. And we see the singer's formant ones are up here too, right? And chilling.
They're like me.
Cool, so that's what formants are. Does that help? Okay. Now remember, so these are like the prism that we take, right? So this is just a snapshot of all the harmonics that are happening. Cool. Good. So there's two kinds of spectrograms we can have. We can have a narrowband spectrogram, which looks like this. It's a low resolution, it's visually helpful, and we can see vibrato and harmonics really easily because we go through there. And then we can have wideband spectrogram, which is this. Basically, it takes more information from all the harmonics. Because when the FFT thing, remember I talked about that briefly, it's called fast Fourier transform. And the fast part of it means that it leaves out information, right? So this is like taking an MP3 of what the sound actually is, right? So it's less resolution to it, okay? So we can change what that resolution is. And so we can change what we actually see from the information, okay? So like with this one, we can see total bandwidth, there's high resolution, and so we can see like exactly where, say, our pitch crosses a format or something like that, because there's more information with it, okay? Good, so applications for why we would like actually use these things. The people who write these books are way into using this stuff in the studios and like how to learn things, so they always like to talk about it, okay? Our ears are always better at this, and they'll say that, you know. Male voices produce enough harmonics to fill the formants because the pitches are lower, right? So because the pitches are lower, we can see more in the formants, okay? Female voices, especially in higher tessitures, we don't hear enough of the harmonics in the formant information, and so it's more difficult to process, okay? So a lot of times they'll go and say like, oh, men's voice is so complicated when it goes through the tessitura or the passaggio, because it goes through all these things, like females just have this easier time, and it's not necessarily true. There's just like some other things that happen. We'll talk more about that when we get to registration, okay? All right, good. So McCoy talks about how we can see the control of vibrato, we can see control of legato, we can monitor the strength of the singer's formant, right? We can monitor diction, and we can monitor accuracy with the onset and offset. So if we look at some of these things just really briefly, we'll look at more of this on Thursday too, but so we can do things like, I can sing legato, I can go like, Carum Iodem. So my legato was not very good because here, my sound got interrupted really bad, right?
Whoa.
So I can do it again. I didn't practice this morning. Is it working now? Yeah, good. Carum Iodem. I have a little bit better legato, right? But I can also have like really bad legato. Amigo, mio ben. See how you can see the big gaps in there? Yeah, cool. So something else. What's up? Somebody's making jokes about me. No. Okay, so we can also do, diction. So like if we wanted to double our consonants, we can see what that looks like on here, right? So if I'm singing like, oh, what's that? Akuno. We can see the double right there. See how huge it is? Especially if I did like, Akuno. That one's tiny compared to that.
It is.
Yeah. So like when we double our consonants, you know how Maestro Beto says you have to put 1,000,000 of them in there? You like literally have to make them 10 times as longer so that we can tell that it's a double. And we can see that in here, right? So we can measure it. Sweet, right?
Bet.
Cool. So we'll look at some more of this on Thursday. And you guys will do it rather than me. Good, so this is just the link to the software that if you guys want to get it and play with it on your computers. Good. So we saw things like our vibrato, right? So you can see when I was singing it. You can calculate what like what your vibrato frequency actually is, right? So if I go, see how you can see it change?
Wow.
So that's bigger, right? It goes over a wider range. Yeah. Cool. So we can actually we can physically measure if somebody has a fast or slow vibrato, or they have a wobble or something like that. Yeah. We saw the singer's formant. You can see it's up here, right? Right there. How many hertz is that? Woo, it's right there. Yep, good. So it's like 2,000 to 3,000 in my non-warmed up voice. Good. Good. We talked about diction and language. Onset, we'll talk about more. Okay, so you can also do this. This is kind of cool. You can take images and turn them into sound too, right? So we could go backwards through this process. Yeah? So this is kind of creepy. I'm just forewarning you. Do you guys know who Aphex Twin is?
Yes.
No. They always Aphex, yeah. They put these things in there. Hang on. Oh, computers. So it's this computer program that you can take and you can like you can draw images like paint, and it'll make sounds out of them. So they do this it's like electronica, right? And so this is what the spectrogram looks like with all this stuff. But at the end, see how you can hear these change? You can hear it go up. So we can take images and turn them into sound too, right? Yeah. And so there's this link to if you want to try this program. It's kind of cool. So like I can take this and draw.
Can you like upload images and see what they sound like?
Yeah. So you can like import, but like if I play this,
So weird.
or not play it apparently. Okay, cool. Alright. Good, so a couple more things to talk about. So there are other tools we can use to analyze things. These are laryngoscopes, right? So this is what we use to stick down our throats and see our vocal folds. We've all seen those pictures of it, right? They look like this. They spray like Novocaine in your nose so that you can't feel it. and everything, right? Yeah. So, but this is what a rigid laryngoscope looks like. That has a mirror, and those were the first ones that they had. They look like big old like hammers or something, or axes, right? Good. And then we have the electroglotography. It's these things, and we can see. Remember I mentioned about it that they put the little electrical pulse and they can tell if your vocal folds are open or closed, right? That's what this is. And so it gives this graph, right? And so we can see that it's closed here because there's more resistance, and then it's open, closed, open. So they can measure it. That's just another analytical tool that we have to talk about our voice. Okay? Good. And then we see this. Oops.
Chords. Oh, I think I'm.
Oh, I was not expecting that.
Oh.
No!
Yeah, maybe we should have like trimmed this or
Somebody knows.
I feel like I'm being bored.
Wow, we're just going in there.
I know, but you can like see how it goes down, right?
Are they gonna see that?
Yeah, they're gonna sing.
Are they gonna sing together?
Cool, huh?
Are these the false chords? And the fourth one, this one?
They're like this side. Where were you asking?
Never mind, I guess it's not it.
Which one?
That.
That.
That?
Yeah, is it
That's-
false?
no.
Oh.
The false folds are like down here. They're really close to what the vocal folds like.
So what are these?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the top of the cartilage. The arytenoids.
Are they that big?
You can stick your iPhone in your mouth and see it if you want.
You can stick your iPhone in your
Yeah.
mouth. I have never tried that.
I mean,
Have you tried it?
No.
Okay, good. So that we can also measure our airflow, right? You guys, so there's a lot of people that sit and talk about like how much airflow it actually takes to sing, right? They're like, I mean, Dr. King loves to talk about it. I don't know about Bart Paper and Julie Simpson, you know. So they talk about like, oh, higher notes take more air, like things like this, right? So we can actually measure all these things. Spirometry measures airflow with spirometer. It's this thing, right? They actually use it mostly to like see how much air you use when you're running and things like that. It's a big physical therapy tool. But we have this thing called our vital capacity. This is something you guys need to know about. It is the amount of air that we use in a single exhalation, right? So we get this equation, this is our vital capacity divided by the time of phonation. So if we breathe out through this 400 milliliters over 40 seconds, that means that we use 100 milliliters a second, right? And so you can actually measure if you're using a lot of air or not using a lot of air. It's kind of cool. And this is how airflow works in singing. This is kind of stuck in this chapter. It's sort of strange, but I don't know why I didn't talk about it in phonation. But the airflow increases with volume, and airflow increases with raising pitch and amplitude, okay? So basically, if you're lower and quieter, you don't use as much air as you do when you're up higher, okay? Good. So the other thing to remember is our vocal folds are like horribly inefficient at making sound with the amount of air that goes through it. So when we're talking about this, we're talking about something that's like less efficient than a light bulb. And you can imagine like how much heat light bulbs actually give off, right? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, good. Sustained vibrato, airflow is always constant, so the motor has to be on if amplitude and pitch are constant. So we have to keep using our air, otherwise it stops working, right? So that's a scientific thing that we talk about. Even though we talk about in voice lessons that you have to like speed up your air, you gotta feel like you keep adding to it and the line keeps going. There's actually like scientific reasoning behind all that stuff, right? Good. There's different methods of straight tone. If we have decreased airflow and we squeeze, we get a pressed straight tone, so we can sing right, which is kind of pressed. And we can increase airflow and relax and we get breathy. Like that, okay? There's more airflow in the second one. Yeah? Questions? Arlene looks confused.
No,
You're good, okay, cool. You have to do one or the other to sing straight tone. You can't sing straight tone like in the middle of those two. Good. Then there's this thing called subglottic pressure, which is the pressure that you have inside your lungs that's forcing the glottis, right? So our glottis, our vocal folds close that pressure, right? It is the thing that stops the air from getting out of your lungs. And so we have to have pressure that's greater than what's outside of us in order to push the air out, right? Good. Science. Good. And then there's this thing called pressure to phonate, which is PTP. And this is really a thing that's more about like pathologies and things. So if people have to go to speech pathologists and things like that, they use a lot of this stuff more. It changes depending upon our hydration, fatigue, our level of warm up, all these things. And you can always like kind of, you can test it by doing this paw on a diminuendo exercise where you go pa, 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 pa. And there's a point where I can't actually make sound anymore, right? So you can actually tell, so if you're like hurts, or your vocal folds, if your voice is gone or something like that, and you can't do that, you know that it's because of that and not because of that you just like feel like crud in the morning. Okay? The pop thing. Good, when you talk about pop Awesome. Okay. So we have 20 minutes left of class. Do you guys want to do our homework that I was going to give you? We can just do it now together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do.
I like that.
Me too.
That's as good as it gets.
Okay, so I had, it was basically, it's in this packet that I gave you guys, okay? There's still gonna be part of the homework I want you to do. I put it on, I forgot to print it out today, but it's on Google Drive in Forms chapter, yeah? So. Oh, yeah, here.
Does anybody else need one? It didn't go on?
Where is it in here?
It's in the beginning. Okay, everybody have one?
Yes.
Okay. So for the homework, what I wanted you to do was do exercises 1 through 3 in this packet, okay? When we get to registration, we're gonna use this packet for other things, so hold on to it, okay? So this is just, we looked at this program briefly the other day, where it's just to model somebody's voice, right? Okay. So basically the first exercise is just looking at what a voice sounds like just at its source. So I had it set up because I was playing with it. You can all see me, or I'll use the mouse. Is that easier to see?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good. I don't think this gets any bigger. Oh, it does get bigger. Okay. So if we take off the formants, what we do is we have the piano, and we're gonna sing this pitch, right? So that's the first overtone, first harmonic, right? It's the fundamental pitch. And then everything after that is what's an overtone, right? So we get, well, this is the octave, this is the fifth, this is the fourth. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's what these lines, the black lines with the numbers mean, okay? And so if we just take just the source, just what our glottis sounds like, just when it's going, it sounds like this. Okay? So if we have it at, we can change the spectral slope of it, right? With this tilt function here. So if we have -6, that means that each one of these harmonics is processing, the computer program is processing it by reducing the decibels by 6 per harmonic that's over it, okay? Good, so we can increase that or we can decrease it. So let's decrease it first. We're gonna go to like -12, which would be breathy, right? And that's a lot harder to hear, right? Because there's, by the time we get over here, we've lost like a whole bunch of them. Also, our hearing is extra sensitive in like the 2,000, 3,000 range, right? Because of the resonator that's in our ear. So if we have the fall off of all of those, if we have the fall off of decibels that goes up there, we don't get to amplify that sound in our ears, right? The other thing that really sucks is these speakers do the same thing. So the speakers are putting their own filter on the filter that's in the computer. It's kind of weird, right? So if we go back up to -6, that's what is our ideal phonation, right? But we can also go to pressed, which would be -3. So, you see how it sounds super bright? Because it has more amplitude in the upper harmonics.
Whoa, love that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so that's what I wanted you guys to do for the first one of that. Okay, so we can say that you've done that, alright? Good, now for the second one, when we're putting in phonation range of harmonics. Oh, that's the tilt stuff we just talked about. Cool. And so we can move that pitch, right? So if we go down here. See how I'm moving it? Can't sing it Tuesday. Okay, good. So now I just wanted to put in, we talked about this briefly when I was looking at that one graph thing. So there's this button down here that says show formants and partials. And if you click that, we'll get the, I also have to add them. So I don't have them added in over here, right? So I have to move my mouse up here. Why is it not doing it? Oh no, it crashed. Okay, so I'm showing you guys this so that you can play with it some on your own too, okay? So you can go through and see like what happens if you change some of the formants, if you change what the tilt is, and that kind of thing, okay? So that's part of what I'm expecting you to do for your homework. I just wanted to bring you through it when we were here together. Good. Okay, so we got this back. So before I had all the formants checked off, right? So the formants are F1, F5, whatever. These guys up here. And then if I click the show formants, there's no formants down there, but we see the overtones, right? So we're gonna play it. We get our guy. Sounds like he's like really, I don't know.
Going for it.
I know. So now we're gonna put the formants in. And you see how we get the red dots here? Okay. That's a visual representation of what the computer program is putting in as the formants. So those are where it is amplifying the sound that's going through it, right? And so in here, they say, if we want like an A vowel, for like a bass baritone, we put in F1. The first formant will be 440, second one will be 1400. Good. So we see where we got the formant spaced out now. We got the one down here for A, because that's a low formant, right? And then the next one is a little bit higher. And then we have the singer's formant cluster right there, okay? Cool?
Cool.
So if we play it, it should sound like A. Yeah? So then we can move the formants. So say I just want to move the first one. your mouth is more open now. Cool, right?
Does anything change if you just move the second one?
Sorry?
Does anything change if you just move the second one?
So that'll be the,
Also just change.
because that's more tongue position-ish, right? So let's try that one. Remember, you gotta hear it higher, because the overtones has changed, so it feels like it's like way up there. And so when they get closer, they like amplify more, right? Because we hear it double. Now, we can't actually do that in our voices. Our voices don't work that way. Right, but so we can use this program to do like superhuman things like that, where we cross them, okay? So now, that's the 3 of those. So to show you what happens, we'll talk about this when we talk about registration, but if you want to do, so say we want to sing, this is more for guys. So when you talk about going through like your passaggio, okay? I just gotta set these up right again. Okay, so we're singing a C down where the 1 is, okay? Now if we move that, you'll see him go through the formants, okay? And you'll hear the change. So this is like low C in the bass clef, right? But if you see the third harmonic is already close to the first formant, right? Because it has to do with the way that your voice is shaped. So if I was, like this is a bass baritone, so if it was a tenor, those formants would be farther up higher here, right? Because they'd be a little bit higher because the track is shorter, so the resonance is higher, yeah? So if I move this, you hear how it changes as that second one goes through there?
It like turns.
Yep.
Yeah. That's it.
So it also happens down here on the third one. You hear how that happens? Oh, you guys do?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why like the turn or the cover thing is an acoustic phenomenon. Because what it is the overtones going through the formants. So we hear it close. Okay? Cool. And so that happens in women's voices too, right? So if we're gonna sing, so this is like middle C, right? And so if I'm singing down there, like, you know, like below that in the staff, say like your formant is up like here. And so if we're singing like an E, oh yeah. We have to do the same, you have to do the same thing, so that's like in the bottom of your voice, right? Okay. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so for your homework, we talked about this. This is what I want you to do, okay? Everybody, shh. I just want you to listen, okay? Because this is written out on the thing. I want you to write a couple of paragraphs just explaining to me what a formant is, what a harmonic overtone partial is, and what's the difference between the two and how they work together.
Can you say that again?
Yep.
Is that written somewhere or is it?
It's written, so I forgot to print out the assignment. It's in the formants chapter online, if you want to. I just want you to write a paragraph about what a harmonic is, what a formant is, and how they work together. Slash what the difference is between them.
Please say that again.
Okay. Harmonic, formant, how they work together, slash what the differences between them are. Okay? Because a formant is what?
Residents and residents track.
Killed it.
It's like if I learned anything from.
Okay, but like a paragraph explaining what that means. Okay, cool.
Cool.
Alright, good. That should be pretty easy. So then next week, okay, so the other thing I need people to sing next week. Okay? So I need somebody soprano, I need like mezzo and a tenor and bass. Michael is gonna do it, Ally, awesome, I was gonna do it anyway.
Jack wants to do it?
Emery wants to do it,
Jack,
and a tenor.
Jack. Joey.
Ian, he's not here.
Ian would totally.
He's been stuck in New York for like 4 days.
That doesn't, and he'll still have a voice.
Hanging out.
Ian will probably wanna do it, but I think it would be cool if one of you guys did it too, because you have different voices than just.
So
Can we just do it? Okay, you don't have to sound good.
Yeah, I might actually be gone. So,
Huh?
So we might as well just plan on it.
Huh?
I might be gone, so.
Okay. I just say, okay, so anybody else who wants to do it, I'm gonna make sure that Ally does it, Anne Marie, and Michael, okay? And Joey. Awesome.
Yeah, Joey.
Okay, cool. You don't have to sound good, it'll just be to see what it looks like on the ground, okay? Awesome. And then so we have a quiz a week from today, right?
Yes.
About everything that we've reviewed. Joanna,
No, it doesn't matter. Are you trying, I don't know. Yeah. I'm going to.
I know we were in the same boat and I was like.
I know.
Oh, I thought you said.
No, not long.
Okay, what I want you to do, is I want you to say something like fancy.
No, I don't know grass.
And also like, so, we're not gonna have
That's where I am right now.
croissant land?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. I had to
Don't
and
do
I'm
this
just
to me.
so hungry. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. Other than I should just eat more.
I didn't eat a lot.
I've never
Can we like nothing?
feel proud of it, 'cause that's good. Oh, no.
Well, you know.